Pocket Arcade by Mohammed Mohammed. What is Pocket Arcade? Pocket Arcade is an app that I came up with. The main idea is to incorporate a bunch of retro games into one app. It makes life easier for the player because they don't have to download a ton of different apps just to play their favorite old school games. The first game I added to Pocket Arcade is Pong. Pong is one of the earliest arcade video games, and the very first sports arcade video game. It is a tennis sports game featuring simple two-dimensional graphics. The aim is to defeat an opponent in a simulated table tennis game by earning a higher score. So far, Pong is the only game that is playable in Pocket Arcade, but as I spend more time on building the app, I would like to add several more games. The start screen consists of two buttons, one to transfer the user to the screen for one player, and one to transfer the user to the screen for two players. This screen is very simple, and obviously does not contain too many features. The one-player screen consists of a few buttons to score the Pong ball and the Pong paddle. You play the game by moving the paddle up and down and trying to position it correctly so that it comes into contact with the ball. The ball will start at a random spot in the screen and shoot towards the paddle. Every time the player hits the ball, they earn a point. You lose the game by hitting the edge the paddle is located on, also known as edge -3. But if you hit any of the other edges, the ball will bounce and shoot towards the paddle. The score goes up until the player fails. The speed goes up incrementally to make the game harder for the player. These are the most significant blocks in the one-player version of Pong. The block ball 1 edge reach dictates what the ball will do when it hits an edge. If the ball hits edge -3, the app will play the bong sound effect and disable the ball from moving and send the player to the game over screen. If the ball hits a different edge, the ball will bounce and play the sound effect. To get the Pong paddle to only move vertically, I used the Pong paddle .drag block to only have the paddle recognize the y coordinates. The speed of ball block speeds up the ball incrementally depending on the user's score. This procedure is called in the ball 1. Collided with block. This block dictates what happens when the ball hits the Pong paddle. The game will play the bing sound effect and add a point to the score. The ball will do a 180 and shoot towards the opposite wall. I also have a TinyDB stored value in this block, so I can save the score and transfer it to the game over screen. Once the player misses the ball and it collides with edge -3, the player will be sent to the game over screen where they can view their score from the current game and their overall high score. The player is also greeted with a button that will return them to the home screen. The game over screen code has two simple blocks, one that dictates the score and one that controls the return button. The most significant piece of code is the one that controls the high score function. It changes the high score number if the number in the score is greater than or equal to the current high score. The two-player mode consists of the same features as the one-player mode. But instead of having one score section and one Pong paddle, it has two of each. It also has the same default buttons as the one-player mode. This mode is played by two users, as you can tell from its name. Each user gets a paddle in there. Scores are differentiated by the side their paddle is on. So the person on the right looks at the right score and the person on the left looks at the green score. The score goes up depending on what wall the ball hits. Let's say the user is on the left side. If the person on the right misses the ball, the user on the left will earn a point. If the ball hits the top edges, the ball will continue to bounce and neither of the players will get a point. First person to 10 points wins. These three blocks are the most significant for the two-player mode. The edge reached block dictates what happens when the ball comes into contact with an edge. The end procedures control what happens when one of the players wins. It pauses the music and sends the player to one of the win screens. Win screen red if player red wins, and win screen green if the green player wins. The win screens show the score of the winner as well as the score of the loser. It also displays a play again button so the users can play again if they'd like. The win screens are very similar. They use TinyDB to call the final score from the game screens and display that score so both players can see how they did. What I've learned. TinyDB. I'm more familiar with TinyDB now that I've been able to experiment with it more. Although it seems like it is hard to use, it's very easy to learn how to operate it. It is very versatile. It can be used for a lot of different functionalities. like in my case the high score feature in the one-player mode. Multiple screens. They are helpful when you need to have multiple features on one screen, but you don't have enough space, or you just want the app to look better. It's easy to transfer data between screens, so you don't have to worry about losing data along the way. What I've learned continued. Breaks. Taking a break from app building is essential. I found that I came up with my greatest ideas when I was working on something else. Research. Do some research on the different features App Inventor provides. You might find an easy fix for a problem you are having. Ask a friend if you're stuck, they may have had the same problem you're having. The end.